Video opens with a camera shot of quick flashes of NWABA athletes, and text reading, helpful or unhelpful, when and how to ask the right questions, with NWABA's logo. The three individuals in this video are sitting side by side on stools, with their guide dogs at their feet on a hardwood floor, with a brick wall in the background.
Welcome to our Perspectives on Blindness Etiquette video.
Text appears that reads, Kirsten French, Senior Programs Manager, NWABA.
My name is Kirsten, and I'm about 5 feet tall. I have long brown hair. I'm wearing a light blue t-shirt, and at my feet is my female yellow guide dog, Nightly. And I'll pass it on to my left.
Text appears that reads, Sherry Chauvin, Senior Operations Manager, Nike.
Hi, I'm Sherry Chauvin, and I'm about 5'7". I have brown hair and brown eyes, and at my feet is my yellow Labrador Retriever named Haviland.
Text appears that reads, Lillian Goodman, Payroll Specialist, NWRESD.
Hi, I'm Lillian Goodman. I am about 5'4". I have long reddish-brown hair and blue-green eyes, and at my feet is my guide dog Spinoza, who is a Golden Retriever Lab Cross.
For a lot of people, meeting someone who is blind or low vision, it's the first time they've met that person who's blind or low vision. It is not always common to see a lot of people who are blind or low vision, and whether that's you're joining us for an event or you're working at camp or just even out on the community. And as such, it's understandable that a lot of people might have a lot of questions. However, with that, what are some examples that you all can think of that are helpful questions versus what are some unhelpful questions?
I think, for example, if we're at a sport and, it's your first time guiding, I think that's an appropriate time to ask, how much vision do you have, to, know how best to guide that individual. But, after a while, and we've had that conversation, okay, this is what I can see, to just talk, and have, conversations about other things than blindness, because we have so many other aspects to us than blindness. It's just one part of us. And so I think that's one kind of an instance where it's, an appropriate time to ask that question.
Yeah, I think that starts to touch on that reminder of there are appropriate times for asking questions and there are really inappropriate times for asking questions. Of I'm working with a guide for the first time. That's an appropriate time to have a conversation on whether for Lillian's talking about how for her she likes when someone asks her, what's your vision, and gives that information. I personally prefer when we're in that situation for someone to ask, how do you like to be guided? What is going to be helpful? And that's just also an example of we're two different people, so we have two different perspectives. But that is an appropriate time to ask any questions about vision. But on the bus, if some random person just comes up to you and says, oh, you're blind? What's your vision? Oh, I didn't know you're blind. How much can you see? That's an inappropriate time. That can be a really stark example, but it's also helpful to remember in the same way that you wouldn't go up to someone and ask them, what's your cholesterol? How much do you weigh? And you're like, whoa, that is very personal information. You wouldn't do that about blindness and someone's visual impairment. How much someone can see is personal information that any person has the option to be able to choose to share that information or not choose to share that information.
I think going along with that, in terms of inappropriate, is, and I should have this happen, that's why it comes to mind, is when someone comes up and they realize that you're blind and they'll take their hand and wave it in front of your face and ask if you can see that, or how many fingers am I holding up? And, it's completely inappropriate. It's also embarrassing to me. Yes. And it's just not something that is a cool thing to ask somebody. So if you seriously have a question, then that's not the way you should ask it. And just say, hey, may I ask you a question about your vision?
Yes.
And, anytime anyone has asked me that, I have said, sure.
Yeah.
But if you're going to come up and say, can you see this? That's meant to cause shame, not,
Yes.
not ask a question.
I think it's how it's phrased.
Yes.
For me, I'm much more willing to, answer someone who says, may I ask about your vision loss, instead of someone just said, oh, you're, blind, tell me about your, I think, it's definitely how it's phrased, and so how someone asks it as well.
And that kind of tells you what their intent is, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yes. It also starts to build that trust because that person has asked, may I do this? In the same way that someone might have asked, is there anything that you need help with, or do you need any help? You have given that person's giving you that space to say, no, actually, I'd rather you don't, or not right now, maybe another time, or I don't need help right now, but I'll let you know if I do. It allows that space to say yes or no, of that ball is now in our court to say, yes, I'm happy to answer this question. I feel comfortable answering this question. This is a time that I would like to answer this, or to say, no, I'm good. No, not right now. To remember that autonomy, because it can be incredibly dehumanizing for someone to do those things that Sherry was describing, and as audacious as they sound, those things happen on a regular basis. And it's important to remember that when you're interacting with someone, maybe you ask that question of, hey, may I ask you about your vision? Someone might say no, or start to close that conversation earlier than typical, because sometimes that person's coming in with negative experiences that you don't know about, whether it's, hey, I was on the bus and I had this really negative experience, and then I come up to this person, maybe I come to an event, or I come up to a random person and they ask, may I ask about your vision? And I've just had that experience of someone on the bus doing something inappropriate, or someone has said, I can see you looking at me. You can't be blind.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you're coming from a really negative experience to, yes, a positive experience, but saying, nope, I really don't want to talk about that right now. I'm really not in a space to have this conversation.
And not everybody wants to educate all the time.
Oh, right.
That's very
So,
true.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm happy to do it when I want to or whatever,
Yes.
but, it's not something I want to do every single time I have a conversation with someone. So,
Yes. Yeah, that everybody, in the same way that everybody has different experiences, you might have had a long day at work.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
that's the last thing you want to do is advocate, educate, or any of these other experiences. Now might not be the time. And I think it can be a good reminder for everybody to be remembering to read those social cues of, you might be having a conversation with someone and they're happy to talk about their vision loss, but then you start to feel that conversation is wrapping up. You're asking a question of someone and they start to push the conversation in a different direction. Follow those social cues and go, okay, great, we're wrapping up this conversation in the same way anybody else might move a conversation into a different direction.
yeah, and don't be offended by that.
Right.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up our time here, we want to leave everyone with that reminder to connect with each other, to stay open-minded, and to remember what brought you here, to help build those bridges and connect and empower everyone to help continue to build a community where everyone's engaged.
Video ends with a camera shot of quick flashes of NWABA athletes and the NWABA logo.